right. Wayne Allyn with the president, President Donald J. Trump, 45, 47, and our 17th. There's the important number. Our 17th interview together. Got to be some sort of record, right?
Well, it's up there. It's a lot of interviews. You've done a great job. You have a wonderful audience, so I don't mind doing them at all.
You know, the big problem is I always say on my show that you are a guy who gets more accomplished in a week than the typical president does in 8 years. And I rattle off all your accomplishments every week. But that's me, and my listeners and my viewers know what you do because I tell them. But the mainstream media doesn't tell anybody about any of the great things that you do. And that's the problem. People don't know.
Well, it's a shame, actually. I mean, if you look at Washington, D.C., just as an example, I just saw a report came out from a liberal group saying that sending in the National Guard had no impact on crime. And yet Washington, D.C. went from the worst city in the whole country, just about, to the best city in the whole country. And I have to listen to this stuff, and it just makes you furious. You know, it just makes you furious. Stupid people. And they write a report, and Washington, D.C. is booming. Nobody was going before. Nobody. When I got here, the restaurants were closed. The place was a disaster. And now it's you can't, if you're a restaurateur, you can't even get a restaurant. People can't get into restaurants. It's bustling. The crime rate went down 78%. More than that, actually. You know, we get crummy reports from these people. And, but think of that. A report comes out that Washington went from the most unsafe city just about in the whole country to one of the safest cities in the country, maybe the safest. And I have to listen to a report that sending in the National Guard had no impact. The whole thing is crazy.
And I'm a witness, by the way, because I came to visit you. My wife, Cindy, and I were at the Oval Office with you. And I came two other times, once for our mutual friend Lee Lipton when he became ambassador to the Philippines.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I've been into Washington 3 times in the last few months. And it used to be homeless everywhere, scary at night. And we had no fear. There were no homeless. We were out at night walking. You changed everything, but the media
Well, we moved
won't tell
5,000 people out. So remember, we had career criminals and hardened criminals and people that were allowed into our country by Biden. And, you know, the open border disaster where anybody, they didn't do any check. They didn't do anything having to do with, let me see your papers. Just people coming in from all over the world, from the Congo, from South America, from all over the world. They were pouring in just totally unchecked, unvetted. And we removed in Washington, as an example, almost 5,000 career criminals or bad people. Let's say bad people, but many career criminals, many murderers. And some of them were so bad we had to put them in jails because we thought they'd come back. So we did that. And, you know, and you've heard me say this, 2% of the people cause 91% of the crime.
Right.
And when you hear that, it's a great stat for us because we can handle 2%. Now, if it was 90% cost 90%, we have a problem, right? But 2%, we got rid of the really bad ones of career criminals and murderers and took them off the streets. And then I have to listen to how, I guess he's basically saying I probably had no impact on it. And the other thing, it's a clean city. It's beautiful. The monuments are beautiful. They're sparkling. You know, we turned on 38 fountains that were turned off for years, for decades. They were graffiti ridden, weeds growing into them, and they're all operating now. It's been an amazing miracle. We're changing the grass in the parks. You know, people laugh, oh, he's changing the grass that's a big deal. It's a big deal. The grass, grass has lives just like people have lives. And this grass has been there for like 50, 60 years. And we're doing a job. This place looks so beautiful. I did it in Memphis too, by the way. You know, the people living in Memphis will tell you, you go there. And I did it in New Orleans. I got a call from Jeff Landry, a great governor, and he said, we need help. And I did it in New Orleans. New Orleans is down 50, 60% already. Memphis is down more than that. And if they called me in Chicago, I'd do it there, and I'd do it in New York and Los Angeles very easily. But we have to be called.
Yeah, well, they're not going to call you in New York, L.A., or Chicago.
They don't
you and I both know that.
You got to see Chicago's like a killing field. He doesn't call.
And there you have the problem. I mean, there you have the problem, President. What I see is literally a communist color revolution taking over the biggest cities in America. And it's really a merger This is the big problem. It's a merger between communism and radical Islam. That's the Democrat Socialists of America. They hate Jews. They hate Israel. They hate America.
Yep.
They hate white people. How can this be happening in the United
I'll
States?
tell you,
Never in my life have I seen anything like this.
The biggest change I've seen over the last 10, 15 years is what's happened to Israel and Jewish people. The level of they had a very powerful lobby. I would say you go back 20, 25 years ago, they had the most powerful lobby in Washington. Now everyone is, just large numbers of them. If you look at the House, it's the Democrats, but you look at the Democrats in the House, look at guys like Schumer. He's become virtually a Palestinian. And you look at what's happened there, it's pretty amazing, actually. I've never seen anything like it.
All right, so we've gone over all these problems. Let me give you one more problem, then we'll get to some solutions. But the other problem I see is the insurrectionist judges. I think that's the heart of this communist color revolution. They decided once you won for this term, right? Communist judges are stopping you, blocking you.
Yep, they'd stop everything I do, and we've done well generally on appeal. It's very sad with the athletes, with what happened. They had a radical left lunatic judge who knew nothing about sports and basically declared sports in America unconstitutional. And they didn't appeal it. If they would have appealed it, I'm sure the Supreme Court, and now, college sports is a mess because they didn't appeal a bad judge's decision, a judge that knew nothing about sports. That was a beautiful system with, scholarships and everything. It took 125 years to build it, by little pieces. Women were taken care of. The fencing teams were taken care of, meaning teams that would normally be, have trouble. Everybody was taken care of. And now what happens is it's a disaster. I think Penn State announced a $500 million loss, $500 million in athletics. They're paying a young quarterback, like not them, a lot of people, $12 million. He's 17 years old, who they don't know if he's any good, but he's got a strong arm. The whole thing is crazy. And they didn't appeal. The NCAA should have appealed. That's the former governor of Massachusetts. Should have appealed, would have been an easy win. Instead, they're trying to piece a deal together to try and save college sports. And by the way, to save colleges, because colleges can't afford to lose that kind of money.
Right. But again, I'm more worried about the open border, which you have sealed, you have secured.
Yep.
It's in the best shape in
the
history.
The border is not our problem. It's a lot of other countries.
But when you see the Supreme Court ruling that birthright citizenship is wonderful and fine and dandy, it's and that's our Supreme Court. Yep. Republicans supposedly lead 6-3.
That ruling will cost us trillions of dollars over the years.
Right.
Trillions of dollars over the years. And we'll have people coming into the country that you don't want. Now it's a very, very sad ruling. We're piecing together some things you saw last week. I put together two elements that will take care. They're shopping citizenship now. They're making a fortune. They're shopping it using birthright. So I hope I ended it, but somebody will appeal it to a liberal court, and you get thrown out, and they laugh at you. It's a terrible thing. That was a horrible decision.
This is a good opportunity.
Was a horrible decision too, by the way.
But
I have other ways
of doing
tariffs. But the tariff decision, it was an easier way, but the tariff, was an easier route to get to where you want to be. But fortunately, I have other ways of doing it, and that's one of the reasons our stock market is through the roof.
Well, not only is the stock market through the roof, but let me tell you some things that the average person has no clue about. I just saw yesterday that since you became president, 1.7 million new jobs for American-born citizens, but we reduced foreign-born jobs by 1.3 million. That's a fabulous dichotomy. Americans get jobs, foreigners don't.
Nobody's ever heard of that number before. It's never been that way, and it's amazing. We're getting Americans jobs. No, it's never happened before.
Well, you get the credit, and let me mention one more that you should start crowing about. My buddy Kip Herridge is one of the best economists in the country. He says no one has ever seen corporate earnings like right now under you. They're up 40% year to year. Yeah. In the history of America, never have there been corporate earnings and corporate profits, he says, as high as now. Now, that indicates that we're in a very good economy that could explode to a great economy. And they don't say a word about it. Nobody says anything
I'd like
about
to be the next president because remember, we have right now thousands of factories being built. They're being built, and they'll be opening over the next year, year and a half. And whoever the next president is, they'll be standing up, taking credit for what I accomplished. So people like you will remember. We have more auto plants being built right now than in the heyday of the automobile. We hadn't had an auto plant built in 40 years. 40 years, but many, many years, we hadn't had one auto plant. Now we have them built at numbers. During the heyday, they couldn't compete with these numbers. Many other plants do. They're all coming in. And that's because of a few things. It's because of the cut in taxes, but it's really because of tariffs. If you want to sell automobiles, you have to build the automobile in America, which is so simple. It's just amazing. And I watch these stupid economists get up. Well, we don't know if this is a good thing for America, So they're coming in from Germany. They're coming in from South Korea. They're coming in from Japan, Canada, Mexico, who all stole our business. They stole 60% of our business. It's all coming back. Toyota just announced the largest plant in the world is coming into the country, Texas, coming into Texas. Largest auto plant in the world they're building. They're leaving Mexico. They went to Mexico instead of coming here. They're leaving Mexico. They're coming into Texas. Great.
Well, all of it adds up to
all because of tariffs. Because if they build it outside, they pay a 25% tariff. They can't do that. So what do? They build it here. And if 25 wasn't enough, I'd make it 50.
I was with you in Las Vegas just last week. And one of the things you said struck me. I mean, the reason that everything you just said is happening is because you've gotten countries to invest 19 trillion with a T dollars into the U.S. economy. Biden got less than 1 trillion. And yet again, nobody in the media talks about this.
They don't want to
There's
talk
no
about
way that
it.
people
Biden
are investing
did less than 1 trillion in 4 years.
Less than 1 trillion.
I did 19.2 trillion investment into our country. 19.2 in 12 months.
And that's why corporate earnings are up 40%.
That's only in the first year.
That's why corporate earnings are up 40%. In other words, it's trickling down to the corporations, and soon it'll be trickling down. I built one of the greatest
machines in history, and nobody will talk about it.
Right. Well, again, remember, when Joe Biden was president, things were horrible, and the media claimed everything was great, and they never questioned anything he said. Now that everything's good.
What he did to us in so many ways. And by the way, they talk about munitions, and we're fine with munitions. We're having to do with, we're fine. But the reason it would be lower, and we're building them like crazy, but the reason it's low is because he gave $300 billion worth to Ukraine. He gave more. He gave, They never mention that. They never like to mention that. Now, I give to Ukraine also, but they have to pay, meaning the European Union. I don't do Ukraine. I give it to the European Union. They have money, and they pay top dollar. They pay full dollar. I don't want to say top because, I'm not looking to pay top. But we sell munitions, we sell fighters, we sell everything to the European Union, and they do what they want. They give it to Ukraine. But Biden gave numbers away that were just crazy. When I left, pre-Biden, I left, the cupboards were totally full. He emptied the cupboards largely.
Right.
That's it's not the way we spent in if you look in Iran. It was very little by comparison. The tremendous, and he didn't replace them, but now we're replacing them at record numbers, and we're getting back up. But I have to tell you, nobody ever mentions the fact that I gave him every warehouse. We had to take additional warehouses because here's another story. In 2016, when I came in and a general told me, good general, said, "Sir, we have very little ammunition." I said, "You got to be kidding. What's that all about?" And we had a couple of potential conflicts on the way, by the way, which I said, well, I guess we're not going to do that. But we had a potential conflict. He said, we don't have, because what happened, and that was a different thing. Obama didn't want to spend any money on the military. So when I got in, we had very little. Now I come in a second time, and Biden gave so much of it away to Ukraine. But we're rebuilding it fast. We have plenty.
Well, he also gave away the strategic oil reserve. He wanted to make sure he lowered oil prices that were exploding, and he did that, which was a big mistake.
He
and don't forget one thing.
I was almost topped out with the oil. but we'll fill that up again fast. We'll fill it. And that wasn't meant for, getting prices down for the automobile so you get a vote, which didn't work because he used it like crazy. And in the end, the people voted for me in a landslide. But they use that for election purposes. That's supposed to be used in time of war. You know that. That's why they call it
emergency only. Right. And don't forget, I think one thing
at the lowest point. They brought it down to the lowest point in history. But we'll build it back up.
I think one thing you should stress more often. Look, there is still inflation, but it's Biden's inflation. And so when people see these inflation,
did you see the chart that came in yesterday? I'm the lowest of the last 10 presidents on inflation. I mean, it's crazy. It's a chart. And Biden, by the way, was highest. Well, it's not only inflation. I inherited high prices. And then the day I got in, the reporters started saying, what are you going to do about affordability? Like it was my fault. I said, I've only been here one day. Remember, they hit me with eggs. I said, what about eggs? He said, well, it's up 4 times. I said, this is my first day in office. Give me a break, right? Remember that famous news conference where they're saying, what are you going to do about eggs? I said, hey, I just got here. And by the way, eggs are now down to lower than they were in my administration. But I brought the pricing down. And as soon as the Iran war ends, you call it a war, call it a military conflict. But as soon as it ends, you'll see oil prices. And by the way, oil prices are low anyway. Just so you understand, oil is lower than it was during the Biden administration. And I stopped them from having a nuclear weapon. Because if I didn't do what I did, they would right now have a nuclear weapon, and you would be addressing them as sir. You would call them sir. It's one of those things.
All right, so this gives me a chance to ask a question. You brought up the Iran war. I'm reading today that we've kind of changed our strategy. It's not going to be bomb, bomb, bomb. It's going to be just starve them out at this point with a naval blockade.
I never say
is dead.
I don't talk about strategy. Why should I talk so? Maybe, but we have 3 powerful strategies. We could just keep it alone, and they're going to fail. We could just keep, doing sort of just like nice and easy, relaxed. Like I said, I'm sort of negotiating. You see, they're very devious negotiators because they'll agree to something, then they'll go out and tell the press that they did not do it. No, they're very dishonest people. So we have 3 strategies. Do what I'm doing now, just bop along and look how bad they're doing because the nations, they've got 300% inflation. They have no value. Their currency has almost no value. They have they're not paying their soldiers. Their soldiers are leaving. So just keep that going because that's not sustainable. Hit them really, really hard, or really the third is just beat them economically. But we're doing that anyway. That's sort of a part of the first. So economically, they are a mess. They can't borrow money. We control their money, what they had, which is a lot. They had a lot, and we have total control of it. I'm their banker. I am their banker.
So here we are in September, and the Iran war conflict is still ongoing. Tell me how we're going to win the midterms. There's the billion-dollar question.
I'm in this thing for one primary reason, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So now they can.
Right.
I hit them with the B-2s. A very important thing, the JCPOA, that's the Obama nuclear disaster, the deal he made. They would have had a nuclear weapon 5 years ago if I didn't terminate that. So that was a big move. But that was in my first administration, which, by the way, had the best economy in the history of any president. Now, my new one, this one is better, but nobody wants to write about it. This one has a chance to be better than any country ever in the world. Look at how we gained on China. I mean, we are way ahead of China. Nobody thought that was possible. Remember that China was going to catch us in 2018 because of my first administration. That didn't happen. Then they said by 2020, 2022. Well, we are so far ahead. We're leaps and bounds, above everybody. I got rid of the windmill stuff. I got rid of all the environmental crap that was killing. By the way, killing other countries all over the world. The windmills. You know who makes the windmills? China. They don't use them, but they make them. They make them.
They make 'em.
I said, how many wind plants are in China? They're trying to think. They're looking around. They have 1 or 2 demonstration plants. Like, here's what they look like. But they don't use them because they're no good. They're very expensive. And they produce bad energy, very expensive. Most expensive thing. They ruin the neighborhood. It's amazing when the environmentalists want wind. And they ruin your site. They ruin the birds. All the birds are dead. You want to see a bird graveyard? Go under a windmill sometime, and you'll see thousands of dead birds.
And the media will never say a word.
They love it.
And the media will never say a word.
They love wind. We love wind.
All right, so let's segue to the midterm. Listen, this is the whole ball of wax, the whole kit and caboodle, the whole kitchen sink. We got to win the midterm because otherwise the last 2 years of your presidency, you and I both know you're not going to be able to pass anything. We got to win. So what's the strategy to win the midterm?
Well, one thing is the Senate has to get going on Save America. I really believe that because people expect that to happen, and it has to happen. And you have a couple of Republicans who aren't voting for it, a few. It's about an 89% issue with the overall population, including Democrats. Save America is voter ID with photo, by the way. It's nice to have they're fighting on the photo. We don't want a photo. Now, why don't they want? Because they want to cheat. It's very simple. There's only one reason. But we want to have that. We want to have proof of citizenship. So be nice to say, yes, I'm a citizen. Here's my citizenship. Proof of citizenship. And ideally, but we're not even stressing this because that's only a 79% issue. That's not in the 90s. The mail-in ballots are so corrupt. You know that.
Right.
They're so corrupt. You saw it in California a couple of weeks ago when Spencer Pratt had a very substantial lead. And the election kept going on and on, going on for weeks. It might still be going on, actually. But all of a sudden, you hear a report that the woman that nobody ever heard of is surging. Nobody ever heard of her. She's surging. And she took
she was crying. Spot. She was crying on election night because she lost. She was crying. She thought she lost. Then they interjected all the ballots. She won. She had no idea.
California is one of the most corrupt places for elections. They do like 38 million ballots without a voter booth, everything. And Democrats get 5, 6, 7 ballots. Then Republicans get none. They have to call in for their ballot. The whole thing is so crazy. Republicans, and a lot of people don't want to call in. They're not that much into it like we are, right? We're into it. But the guys, they don't know how to get a ballot. They don't get a ballot. Republican areas have a hard time getting a ballot. Nobody ever talks about that.
So let me.
But the Democrats, my record is 11. That's the record. Somebody said 11. They had 11, and you know what? They'll send them in too. They don't care. It's the Wild West.
Let me suggest something. Because you and I both know that the Save America Act may very well not pass, and if it does pass, then you've got immediate legal challenge by the Democrats, and it won't be in place for the midterms, even if it passes. And with all these GOP senators, I doubt it's going to pass.
Challenge because when you pass it in Congress, that sort of ends all challenges, So there will.
But we can't assume.
If you get it passed, it's going to be a big thing.
But we're not going to assume
even if you said for the future. You got to have it passed. You got to have voter identification,
right? And
you got to have proof of citizenship. Who would fight that?
So my point is,
we have a couple of Republicans that are against that. Can you believe it?
It's impossible.
Now the House has passed it 5 times. Mike Johnson is fantastic, by the way. He does a great job.
Yes, he is.
The House has passed it 5 times.
Hey, listen.
And sends it up to the Senate.
President,
where
this is a Senate
to die.
This is a Senate that won't even give you. They won't even pass daylight savings time. So it's pretty hard to get something passed when everybody wants it.
So the House passed it. So we have daylight, and you know what the big thing? People like more when the light in the afternoon. Okay, it's 65, 35. That's it. But what is 99, even 100% is people hate changing their clocks all the time.
Right. Correct.
I was late. I was an hour late for an appointment, a big one with a big person from a big country. I was an hour late. I walk in, sir, you're quite late. I said, what are you talking about? Oh, it's you forgot to spring forward or fall back. I think
but the Senate, won't
it has even an impact on crime, because when you allow more light, because criminals sleep late, they do their crime in the evening, so the light gives you. but there are a lot of reasons. But if you even if you don't, you're like some people like a little light in the morning. I don't know why. I'd rather have the light in the afternoon. Good for sports, good for crime, good for everything. But that's a 65%. They like it the way it is now. In other words, we have more light. But that's 65%. What's 100% is nobody wants to change clocks. Do you know that what it costs to change clocks in this country?
A lot of money, a lot of time.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Because you have churches and you have government buildings where you have these beautiful watchtowers, these beautiful things that have 10 stories up in the air. And they have to hire cranes and they go up to change the clocks. But you have to do it by tremendous scaffoldings. That's in order to change the clock. It's ridiculous. It's very dangerous.
It's ridiculous.
Too. A lot of people get hurt.
So let me put an idea in your head, okay? Because it's so hard to get the Senate to do anything. Now they're on recess. They don't get anything done if they never get the Save America Act done. You have the right to declare a national security emergency for elections. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1983 under Reagan that INS versus Chadha, that if you declare a national security emergency as the President of the United States, they can't challenge it. It can only be overturned by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So if you do this in the next month, we will get photo ID, proof of citizenship, and a limit to mail-in ballots, and you don't even need the Senate's vote.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So let me finish with a couple things. Dr. Fauci, can't you challenge the auto pen? You should challenge in court.
Well, we are doing
the auto pen.
We are doing.
You are doing it. Okay, good.
What has to happen? I mean, I've become an expert on the auto pen thing because I'm not an auto pen guy, as you see. I'm not sure I ever used an auto pen, but I sign my name a lot each day. People like the signature too. It's a good signature, I guess. But people like it. But I watched. I mean, I heard stories where a general's being promoted to a 4-star general, and he's standing proudly in front of the president, and the president takes the papers and hands them to his people, and they go into a room. They come back 15 minutes later and signed by an auto pen. And they move the general over. He stands in the back of the room in the Oval Office for 20 minutes with his family. Well, they send it out to be signed by an auto pen many times. But what happens is Biden will always say, I gave authorization, because if he gave authorization. So he's always going to say that because, he'll lie. He won't even know what the question is, but they'll get him to say that, right? So once he's authorized, once he authorizes, so the real question is, do you have to have it authorized in writing?
Right.
And the answer is probably so. So because he didn't do it in writing in any event. Okay. So they had people.
I would challenge
people.
I would challenge.
What?
I would challenge it.
Yeah,
and one other thing.
We're looking at it.
All right. And by the way, the other issue
by the way,
challenge
if that's the case, there are things bigger than Fauci that you could challenge.
Right. Right.
You understand that?
Yes, I do understand.
I mean, because he signed almost everything by auto pen except one. You know what the one was? Hunter Biden's pardon.
Hunter Biden. There you go.
Hunter Biden has an absolute pardon. Because
and by the way, don't you think
a pardon is the most powerful thing that a president has? I mean, it can't be challenged, and it's good. It's a good thing. But when you sign by auto pen and you haven't authorized it, it's probably not legal. So he will say he authorized it, and then did he authorize it in writing? And I doubt it.
And I think there's a second legal ground to attack the pardon on, because Fauci was not charged with a crime. How do you pardon someone with a blanket pardon when they've never been accused of anything or convicted of anything? It makes no sense.
I haven't heard that. But, that one I can't speak to. From what I understand, you do have the right to do that. It's, a preemptive pardon. You do have the right to do preemptive.
Why would someone need to be pardoned if they never did anything wrong in the first place, right? So
that's true, but I could tell you this. I I did nothing wrong, and you can make the same case right there. A lot of people wanted me to give myself a pardon. I had the absolute right to do it. Instead, I fought it through the courts and won. But a lot of people wanted me to do Now times have changed because of what Biden's done. He's done pardons for everybody, Although he's left some out, he left some of his stalwarts were left out, but he's done a lot of pardons. But no, the power of pardon is very powerful.
Well, my hope is, and I wrote a
not to
commentary.
do it for myself. I knew they'd come after me, not nearly the way they did. I didn't know that they're going to be, raiding Mar-a-Lago and all the things they did. I had no idea they were going to do that. But I was advised by numerous lawyers that these are bad people. You should give yourself a pardon and save yourself a lot of trouble. And I said, you know what? I did nothing wrong, and I'm not going to do that. I did nothing wrong. And
yeah, well,
I went
Dr.
through
Fauci,
years of fighting.
I got news for you. Dr. Fauci did do something wrong, and we really need to go after him. And I hope, hope is we can get him on the state level.
That's all being looked into.
My hope is, President, we can get him on the state level.
We have a lot of things. We have a lot of things that were done so badly that really was something. But boy, I tell you, the Fauci does have it has a big audience. There's no question about it.
Yeah, hopefully we get him on the state level. If you can't get him on the federal level, then let every Republican state go after this guy and make his life miserable to the day he dies.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think he deserves it. He's
they
horrible
did that
person.
with me. That's what they did.
Yes,
they did
I know, but you did not. But you did nothing wrong, and he's a horrible person.
Wrong. It took me 2 years to prove it, but I did nothing wrong. It's a disgrace.
Let's switch gears to another topic that isn't big in the news: vaccines. So I saw that you are someone like me that's worried about childhood vaccines, that they give too many. And I agree with that. I have 4 kids.
Not too many.
They're all, too many.
It's too many.
Yeah.
Like the hepatitis B, which is a sexual, you don't need to give it to a kid who's just practically born.
Exactly.
But with me, it's too many, but it's something bigger than too many. It's too big. It's too much at one time. They give these massive. Did you ever take a look? It looks like a Coca-Cola bottle. It's like they're pumping this massive amount of fluid into a child's body. I don't care if it's water.
You know what the number is? 72.
And I want them to break it into 4 visits or 5 visits to the doctor. And I think that will have a huge impact. And the other thing is there are certain vaccines, the MMR. Do you know the MMR, as an example? If you give them, certain studies. So what do you have to lose? You know what I'm doing? I'm saying, what do you have to lose? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Nobody's going to get hurt by it. MMR. If you give them separately, the M, and the R, it's fine. When you put them together, they're sort of like a nuclear weapon, according to some. So why wouldn't you give them separately?
Why would you?
What's hurt by giving them separately?
And why would you give a COVID vaccine to a child when not one child ever died of COVID who didn't start with childhood cancer?
True.
There's no risk of COVID killing children, right?
I agree. And if you notice, I gave the power to the states, the federal system. And the Republicans often did, they were not nearly as severe. Some were great. South Carolina did a great job. The governor of South Carolina, he did a great job. A lot of states did a great job. The Democrats all put everybody in hiding. And really hurt themselves badly. So,
well, you know why they did that? You know why they did that? It was never about illness. It was never about a pandemic. It was about hurting your reelection. That was the whole point, to kill your booming economy.
It could be, but I won that election by a lot. At the 2020 election, I won by a lot. The next one, I made it too big to rig. Oh, they tried. They cheated in the last one. They tried like hell to cheat. They gave up. The expression "too big to rig." It was that Kamala Harris used the other day. Did you know that? I'm watching
I didn't know.
Kamala Harris. She said, "We have to make the election too big to rig." I can't believe she used that. She got killed for that one.
I've always thought the single biggest reason Democrats are stealing elections, the way they're doing it, is with illegal aliens. And it's funny because I saw a story the other day that I wanted to make sure you knew about. In Connecticut, an illegal alien driving drunk and on drugs hit a cop, killed the cop's girlfriend who had 3 children. And it turns out that illegal is registered to vote and has voted in all recent elections for the last 5 years. Terrible. And I'm telling you, it's going on all across America.
Send me that information. I haven't seen that.
I will. That's how they're beating you. I'm telling you, in Nevada, where I live, in Las Vegas,
well, I won Nevada.
It's legal. They get a driver's license. If you give them a driver's license, they're automatically registered to vote at DMV. And once they're registered to vote, it's legal for them to vote in their minds. They're voting.
Yeah.
That's how
but
they're
Wayne,
beating
remember
you.
something. With all the cheating, they didn't beat me. They cheated because I did great in the first one. I did fantastically. I did much better in the second one. And the third one, I made it too big
You
to
did
win.
even better.
The second one was influenced by, and sometimes you think, can you delay because we're in the middle of a worldwide epidemic, right? Can you delay the election? And I could see, how about if I delayed it? Do you think they would have gone crazy? But, I don't know. We never even looked. I said, look, we got to have it be done. But the cheating was unbelievable in the second one. But they tried to cheat in the third election. But when you mentioned like Nevada, I won Nevada despite all of and I won it by a lot. No tax on tips didn't hurt. But I won Nevada by a lot. I won everything. I won, we won it a landslide. We won 86% of the counties in the country. That's the most accurate thing because it's all broken into counties. We won 86%. That's why the map is all red when you look at the map. So
if you want to sum it up as we come to a conclusion with this interview, if you want to sum it up, if people are watching right now, tell them your feeling about the midterms. Are we going to win? Can we win? How are we going to win? What's the message for the midterms?
So I think you have to believe in the voting system. And I think these people want to make sure that they have a fair voting system. Because I always say two things, borders and votes. I did a great job with the border. Do you know that for 15 months, not one illegal alien has come through the southern border? Can you believe that?
Amazing.
It's even hard for me to believe, but the Democrats are the ones that keep that score. 15 months. I've got 15 months. They don't even try anymore because it's so tight. And people can still come into our country legally. They come in through a legal process. That's okay. But they don't come in. What they've done to the country, to me, that's the worst thing they've done. But if you want to let that happen again, they will immediately open the borders. They'll allow men play, the whole thing, men into women's sports. I can't believe that's an issue. I love that issue from the standpoint of being on the other side of it because that is a loser issue for them. And men and women's sports, transgender surgery, all of these things will come back and they'll come roaring back. Plus, you're going to have a jihadist-run country. You'll have a jihadist.
Right.
This is
there's the argument. There it is. That's the argument.
A friend of mine said, don't use communism. It's because people think, with communism, you get things for free, which is true prior to the collapse of the country. I always say, you get things for free prior to the collapse of the country. Okay, that's what happens. But they say it's more accurate. The word, it's a jihadist. It becomes a jihadist country. Look at what's happening up in Michigan. Look what's happening in so many other places. Now, with that all being said, I think it should be good politics for the Republican Party. If they're smart, they would. But they should pass the Save America Act.
Yeah, Save America Act, or you should declare a national security emergency, which will get, to me, it's the Save Act on steroids. You can create the Save Act on steroids, and it'll be better for the people. I think the illegals are voting by mail-in ballot, and you can get that with a national security emergency. No more mail-in ballots. Instead, only absentee ballots.
Probably the reason they want these people, and many of them are criminals, as you know, 11,888 murderers. Many are criminals, but probably the reason they want it, because they're not stupid people. Actually, anybody that can cheat that well, like they cheat, is not stupid, okay? If they'd use that genius if they'd use it for good, the country would be so amazing. But no, they've got a criminal mind. When you don't want a photo ID, and then when the ID concept is passed, but they don't want the photo, they fight like hell.
Well,
why wouldn't they want the photo? Why?
Well, they want it for everything they do. Don't forget, Mandami wanted ID to get into his free grocery stores.
Or to snowplow.
Can you imagine?
How about when they had a snowstorm?
Snow. Yeah,
the only
they
people
needed
to take
ID.
is if they prove their identification. Right?
Exactly. Look, we all know they love walls. They love.
We're doing better than we've ever done. Our economy is better than the facts aren't being released because the fake news is just crazy. I mean, they're just crazy. But we're doing better. We have more jobs. Do you know that more people are working now than at any time in the history of our country? By far.
And they're American-born. American-born.
That's true. And nobody.
That's your accomplishment. That's your
accomplishment. I have
accomplishment.
less government jobs than we've had in 30 years. So if I wanted to have the best numbers in history for employment, I'd just leave the government job. I'd just say I'd hire 1 million people for the government. But
Well, that's what Democrats do.
That's what destroys a country. You know?
Right. Exactly.
No, I could get unemployment down. I could get it to 2%. I could get employment numbers the best in history. Just say, okay, hire 1 million people, and the numbers will go through the roof. I don't want to do that. Anyway, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, President. As I always say, he gets more done in a week than any other president in 8 years. He is the GOAT, President Donald J. Trump, 17th interview. God bless you. We love you. We appreciate you. Win the midterms. Win.
Well, we're going to be pushing. I'll tell you that. We should win on the merits. On the merits, we should win 90%. We should get 95% of the vote. But unfortunately, it's not just about merits. It's about a lot of other things that go on. But we're in there fighting. The Republicans are really good people. They're doing a good job. They wouldn't do what the Democrats do because it's so wrong. You know, they're a lot of, and I'm not even talking about the Democrat voter. I'm talking about the Democrat politicians. And, you know, if we got some of this stuff passed, you wouldn't have a Democrat elected. You would literally have, because
I agree.
They're not electable with their policies.
Without rigged elections, they can't
bad.
win.
Men and women, sports, etc. Their policies are so bad. Without the cheating, you wouldn't have a Democrat get elected. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. President. God bless you.
Take care of yourself. So long.
All right. Bye. Number 17's in the books. I'm Wayne Allyn Root. That was President Donald J. Trump. We'll be right back.